Kurt Bardella, former Republican strategist and publisher of the Watchdog Report on Substack. Kurt, Tuesday's primary is bound to sell a number of remaining races in Texas, especially the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate between incumbent Senator John Cornyn and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, where the winner will face Democratic candidate James Talarico in November. But President Trump has endorsed Paxton, and Senator Cornyn said today that he would not commit to backing him if he lost on Tuesday. Why is this race so critical, and what are you hearing there in Texas?
Well, you know, Rev, from the moment that there was the primary that was going to have this runoff between Cornyn and Ken Paxton, the conventional wisdom was that the only real viable path for Democrats to potentially swing Texas their way is this perfect storm of a longer runoff, meaning no one is laying a glove on James Talarico. He's able to just raise money and not have any negatives against him right now. Cornyn and Paxton just pummeling each other with millions of dollars on the airwaves, driving up their negatives, and ultimately a very flawed nominee in Ken Paxton, someone who his own party wanted to impeach as Attorney General of the state of Texas. His own party didn't believe he was of the standard that he should hold public office. They wanted to depose him. That's the guy that limps forward in the general. You know, John Cornyn would have been very tough, I think. The voters that would have either been turned off and repelled by Ken Paxton, they would have shown up for John Cornyn. The voters who have been voting for John Cornyn for decades here in Texas, who think of him as a strong, conservative, reliable, consistent voice of the Republican Party, they would have showed up for John Cornyn. Those people are turned off, and now they're left with the choice of either just abandoning Ken Paxton for an unthinkable moderate Democrat like James Talarico, or just not showing up and voting at all. Either way, it's the perfect confluence of events that needs to happen for Democrats to have a viable chance at flipping Texas.
Now, this Texas primary between Cornyn and Paxton has broken records to become one of the most expensive in history, with over $122 million allocated to advertising alone. With this amount of money spent on a primary within party lines, why is this race so competitive for the GOP? And how will Tuesday's outcome change the calculus of the race for the general election?
Well, it really just goes to show how Trump's absolute, demand of 100% fealty has really injured his Republican Party. Republicans are spending $100 million in a primary to replace John Cornyn with someone whose voting record in the U.S. Senate will likely mirror his. It's not like John Cornyn has been some moderate squish who votes 50-50 with Republicans. He's about as reliable of a conservative vote that you can have. When you are a party that's willing to just spend unlimited amounts of resources replacing your own with people who won't vote very differently, it begs the question, what are you really doing here? And then, oh, by the way, if you even want to hold on to Texas, every single dollar you spend here in a general election could have been spent way more wisely and gone much further in places like Georgia, Ohio, Michigan, Alaska, Maine, a lot of the competitive seats that we have. Texas is a very expensive place to play. It's huge. Major media markets, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin. So it's good money out after bad. They're going to spend more money than they would have had to. And every dollar spent here, it's an opportunity cost, Rev. It's money they could have spent holding on to other seats that they may very well lose.
Many Trump-endorsed candidates have been winning the primary races across the country in Senate, House, and state legislative races so far in 2026. But at the same time, his approval rankings are sinking as Americans continue to report plummeting confidence in the economy. Will Trump's documented unpopularity hurt him in the general election in November?
Well, absolutely. And again, if Donald Trump were really as powerful as he thinks he is, he would have actually endorsed John Cornyn and swung the race John Cornyn's way. The fact that he waited to the 11th hour to get behind Ken Paxton, who was probably always going to already win the runoff anyway, shows you that Donald Trump isn't as strong as he'd like to have you believe. And ultimately, these negatives, because of high gas prices, a war that nobody wanted, the cost of living going up, child care costs going up, people being asked to do more with less over and over and over again, which completely betray the promises that Donald Trump Republicans led the American people people to believe in 2024 it was going to be a booming economy, a great economy, the greatest economy of all time. Gas prices are going to be an all-time low. No more foreign wars. All those promises are broken. All those people are disenchanted. You look at here in Texas particularly, the reason why the Latino vote is swinging so far away from Donald Trump and Republicans, which they had in 2024, and now swinging back the other way, is because all those promises have been broken. They have a real problem here in Texas with the Latino vote. You talk to people like Chuck Rocha and Mike Madrid, respected constituencies, consultants who have the pulse on the Latino vote more than anyone in national politics, and they will tell you what's going on here in Texas is also going on nationwide. Latinos are abandoning the Republican Party because they were lied to.
Now, to clarify something you said earlier, if you are the Democratic nominee, James Talarico, would you prefer to run against Cornyn or Paxton?
Oh, Ken Paxton, hands down. Again, Cornyn isn't someone that you're afraid of. Cornyn isn't someone that Texans have ethical issues with. Cornyn isn't a Republican that Texans wanted to throw out of office prematurely because they didn't believe that he was credible enough to hold public office. John Cornyn is a name that people here have been voting for decades. They trust him inherently. Ken Paxton has a real trust issue, not with Democrats, not with moderates, with his own party. The baggage that this guy has is going to sink Republicans up and down this state. It's not just the top of the ticket you have to worry about with Paxton. It's the down ballot. If there are congressional seats that end up flipping in November that Democrats are trying to flip, that Republicans currently hold, if they do that, it's in part because Paxton has no coattails, that they're going to spend every single dollar just clawing, trying to keep Paxton in this thing. It's going to have a down ballot effect. It's going to be a huge negative. And if you're James Talarico, and if you're the DSCC right now, you are licking your lips, chomping your bit. This is an ad maker's dream come true, having Ken Paxton as nominee.
Kurt, before I let you go, I want to get your thoughts on the long-awaited DNC report that was released on the public to the public on Thursday. The autopsy received criticism for being poorly written, somewhat disorganized, but listed a variety of reasons for Trump's win in 2024. At this point, how much should the public or political strategists like yourself care about this report?
Well, the public won't care at all. They have no idea that these things even exist because they're too busy just trying to get their kids to summer camp on time right now here. But I think for the consultant class, I mean, this really is the issue here with Democrats. The consultant class seems to learn the wrong lessons from success as they did in 2020. The fact that it took this long to get this thing out there in the first place doesn't embody confidence. The fact that the report itself was not in what I would call final form makes me wonder what the heck did DNC even pay for this thing for, because it really doesn't provide us any insight that we didn't frankly already have right now. And again, if Democrats want to figure out how they can bridge the gap between where their values are and the disconnect with the working class, how they can get what they have on the coast here in middle America and in red states like Texas and learn how to flip them, you got to start talking to people outside the Beltway. Start talking to people whose minds you want to change. Talk to people who live there and find out where can you meet them. The only way to change minds is if you meet people where they are. And I guarantee you, most of those people, most of those voters, they aren't in New York. They aren't in D.C. They aren't in L.A. They're just living normal suburban, what I call suburban dad life. And like I said, just trying to get your kids to and from places on time, trying to afford, the extracurricular activities and the grocery bill and the gas bill. You got to meet them where they are. And Democrats need to do a better job of doing that.